Hello everyone, it's Ryan again with Dark Winter Moon. And for those of you that are new to the channel, welcome. And for those of you that are returning, welcome back. And I created this channel in order to talk about all things magical and witchy for all ye witches and seekers out there. And so today I wanted to talk about some things that have been on my heart and in my mind lately, and some of my recent magical experiences, and just kind of see where it leads. So how about we start with shadow work? So for those of you that have been following my channel for a while, you're probably aware that I am a big fan of shadow work. And one of the techniques that I use is called existential kink, created by Dr. Carolyn Elliott. And it's probably one of the most powerful shadow work practices that I've ever come across. And it's built off the principle, a saying by Carl Jung that says, until you make the subconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. And so essentially what that means is that based on our shadow and many of the things that we have forbidden ourselves as far as our emotions and our expression due to past trauma or just due to life, and are put in the shadow because of our shame of them. And that until we are able to acknowledge those emotions and that past trauma, etc., we are doomed to act out the cycles and patterns in our life that come from those principles, or that come from those shadow aspects of ourselves. So I was working on this practice recently, and another principle that is really foundational in existential kink is the axiom, having is evidence of wanting. And so what that means is that if something uncomfortable in your life keeps repeating itself, it is because you have manifested it. Now, this is in no way about victim blaming. That's not what I mean. Let me give you an example that I was dealing with recently in my work. I have moved in with family because intuitively I knew that I needed to go home and deal with some of the familial patterns that have ruled my life for so long. And that in order to do that, I needed to put myself in the thick of it. So, one of the things that I noticed is that I was constantly getting very, very irritated about the dogs in the home that we live with. We have 4 of them. And, they're just being dogs. We have a puppy. They're playing around. They're making noise. They want in and out. Any of you that have dogs know that this is normal. And I was getting exceedingly angry at the dogs, and I was just kind of seething in it. I was holding it in, and I was like, why am I manifesting this? Why do I want to be so angry at the dogs? And so that question led me to, well, I want to be seen by my family. I want to be able to act out on this anger and throw a tantrum or whatever, or yell or do whatever, and be very reactive and become very visible and very seen. And I was thinking, well, why do I want to be so visible and seen with my family? And the answer that came to me to that question was, well, because I don't feel like I'm seen by them. I don't feel like they really know who I am. And so I asked myself, well, why do you feel like they don't really know who you are? And the answer to that question was, well, I'm a total weirdo. I'm very different from them. If you take my sexuality, if you take my spirituality, my religion, my education, etc., 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 on so many levels, I am and always have been very different from my family. And so I had this sort of weird feeling start to bubble up. And so I went to meditate on this feeling, and part of the the existential kink practice, the shadow work practice that I do, is when an emotion comes up, it's kind of the weirder the better. So it's this very strange sensation, and I'll go into more detail about it in a second. But the practice of existential kink teaches you to allow that emotion without judgment and try to allow it to manifest fully in your body. Try to feel it on a visceral, sensory level. And so one of the easiest ways for me to do that is to meditate on the emotion, usually with Apollo, bless his wisdom, to aid me, and just allow myself to embody that emotion completely, and to feel it completely, without judgment or without shame. And as I was meditating on this emotion, I saw from out of the darkness come this great sort of serpentine worm-like thing. It just came up out of the darkness. It was vast and long. It stretched off into infinite distance. But normally this would be something horrific to behold. But I wasn't afraid. I was just feeling this emotion, this particular strange emotion that I had never quite felt before. And this worm-like object kind of fell down in front of me and split open, and out of it walked this creature, this pasty white creature, very non-gendered, very alien. And then I realized, oh, this emotion, this strange emotion that I'm feeling, is this complete otherness, this complete alienness. And as I continued to look at this creature, I realized, oh, this is my weirdness. This is my differentness. This is my alienness. And I just allowed that feeling completely of this feeling of like, it would have been the same feeling as if some sort of unknown spacecraft landed in my backyard and out stepped this completely not from Earth creature. It was that sensation of otherness. And I looked at this creature too and noticed that its tailbone, or rather its spine, was very defined, and it came out from its tailbone as like a tail, and it went off into the darkness as if to infinity. And I realized, oh wow, this is my weirdness, my complete weirdness that I myself have never fully acknowledged and accepted and embodied. And so I reached out and I hugged this creature, and I suddenly saw myself standing in a room with all of these plinths, with different pieces of myself standing on these plinths. And there was an empty plinth, and I led this my total weirdness, this creature representing my total weirdness, to its own plinth among those accepted parts of myself, and I put it there. And it was kind of like this locking in sensation of, oh yeah, this is a part of my shadow that I've recovered. And so I tell this story because it's probably one of the most keen, most clear examples of this practice, this existential kink practice, this shadow work practice. And it illustrates a point that often the emotions that we're feeling on a conscious level, the reactionary emotions that we're feeling to our given situation, aren't really even about that situation at all. It was this long string of emotional connections that led back into my shadow, leading me to this part of myself that was manifesting this anger towards the dogs in order to get my attention, in order to try to let out to try to get me to see that it existed and that I had never acknowledged it. So shadow work can be such a powerful practice of bringing ourselves to wholeness. And I've also said this before. My belief in witchcraft is that it is the practice of crafting yourself as a wise person. And what really is a wise person but someone that knows themselves intimately? And it's also the basis for magic going the way you want, because these shadow patterns can have an effect on the magic you do. If you're not aware of your actual wants and desire, it can push your magic off the rails and have unintended consequences for you. So witchcraft is a practice of transforming the inner self as much as it is transforming the outer self. This is why we say as within, so without, because when you move your inner world, you empower yourself to have a greater and more conscious effect on your outer world. And witchcraft is a practice with many tools. There's meditation, there's shadow work, there's magic, there's ritual. All of these help us come more in contact with ourselves and more in contact with the divine. That is why we say, as above, so below. That witchcraft allows us to have this interplay between our inner world, our subconscious selves, our conscious selves, our outer world, and the divine. And all of these things work in harmony. All of these tools in witchcraft help facilitate the process of communion with your inner world and communion with the divine, in the hopes and in the very real benefit of improving yourself within and without and crafting yourself as a wise person. So I'm going to link right here a video I did on a shadow work meditation that is very helpful for helping you to start this process of moving into your shadow if you are so interested. So another really interesting thing that happened to me lately is that I have an incredibly talented friend. He is an amulet maker, and he actually just started a shop on Etsy. I'll link it below. His amulets are superb. He has this ability to intuit what the stone will do and to handcraft a perfect wire fixture around it that enhances that stone. And he's so good at just intuitively pairing that stone with folks. And he had a feeling about gifting me a particular stone. And now the name of it escapes me. I'll have to look it up, and I'll also put that below this video. But it was a stone that was good for dreaming and had inclusions of another stone that allowed it to enhance whatever it touched. And so he gifted this beautiful amulet to me. And on a whim, I had just gotten it. It was next to my bed on my nightstand. On a whim one night, as I was kind of lying in bed winding down, I took it and touched it to my third eye. And I got really sleepy really fast after that. Fell asleep about 9:30, which is really early for me. I had this incredibly intense dream how I was the first, or rather, I was on one of the first colonial ships to colonize Saturn's moon Titan. And I remember the trip. I remember being on the ship. I remember vividly as we moved into orbit of Saturn on our final approach to Titan, how I was fighting for room to look out the windows, and how so many people were pressed up against the windows. They were fogged over, and so I remember taking my arm and wiping the fog off the windows, and then I could see the Saturn and its rings up close, and the ship like passed through part of the rings, and they were kind of moving. The pieces of the rings were moving around us. The tiny little I guess moons, the dust of the rings was moving around us, and as and then rather the dream flashed to a point in presumably the future when we had terraformed Titan and I was on the Colonial Council, and I remember looking out the window of the building and the sky was this iridescent, shimmering, sort of opalescent, beautiful color. And then those are the main elements of the dream, but it was so vivid and so detailed and so intense. And I was like, wow, this person is so gifted. He is such an intuitive artist. And he doesn't even realize it, and I've tried to convey it to him. But anyway, like I said, I will put his a link to his shop below this video. I also want to commission him to do a few amulets for my shop at some point. But we haven't worked out the details of that yet. But yeah, I just thought that was so profound for me. I like stones. I have a lot of stones. I've never really had such an intense experience with a stone, except maybe with amethyst or quartz, which are my favorite and primary stones I work with. But yeah, that was a really cool experience as well. The other thing that I have been working on is continuing my money practice, trying to manifest more money in my life and let go of some of the shadow patterns that are preventing me from manifesting money. And as those of you that have been following the channel for a while know, I have a Dirty Sexy Money spell on my Etsy shop. I'll link that below as well. And I was trying to develop a program around that practice, that specific area of money and manifesting more money that I could share with you all and with my community. And I kind of hit a roadblock. And part of the thing is that the last time I did the Dirty Sexy Money spell, it made my holiday business so busy that I didn't have time to continue working on the other program. And I fully intend to come back to it. It's just not time yet. But anyway, I digress. So I've been reading this book that's been on my list of financial books for a long time called Think and Grow Rich. It's by Napoleon Hill. It is considered a staple of financial education. And while the book was written, I think, in the early 60s and is pretty dated in some ways, the foundational principles seem to be very apt. And it just struck me reading this book how it was just kind of low-key magic. And it's so funny because it's so mainstream. And what made me realize this is that it was basically a description of magic from a more psychological perspective. It was the idea of that if you have a desire and you are able to connect your emotions, your passions to that desire and feel those emotions and your desire for it, then you're programming your subconscious mind to manifest that in the world or to help you manifest it in the world. And this is essentially the root of magic, and I was just so astounded by that. So if you don't have that book or you've never read it and you're interested in improving your finances and changing your mindset around money, I definitely recommend it, and I'll also link that below. And recently I have also done my Dirty Sexy Money spell again, and it's so interesting because as I was doing it, instead of having the sensation of the magic going out from me, I had the sensation of it going into me. So I had, again, shadow work, working within, as within, so without. So it was time for me. Let's see, how do I phrase this? So the first time I did the Dirty Sexy Money spell, it wasn't able to take me so far because I'd already done enough of the shadow work to untangle some of the internal blocks and internal dynamics that I had towards money. And so now when I did the Dirty Sexy Money spell again, because some of those blocks are still in place, the magic went inward to start moving those blocks. And it's funny, I think what you'll realize as you do shadow work practice is that you'll keep coming back to certain things over and over again until they're resolved. And you'll realize that in many ways, everything is connected. And so I'm starting to get this sense that as I'm working on my finances, I'm also working on my spirituality, and I'm also working on my love life. They're all connected. And I've kind of refined my shadow work down to a point where I feel like I've gone down to I'm getting close to the core of things, to the root of my shadow work, so that when I do start moving those elements in my shadow and bringing them into the light and reaccepting them and integrating them into my being, then it will have impacts throughout my entire life. So I guess that's enough rambling. I hope that these topics have been interesting and thought-provoking. I would welcome your questions. I love your questions and comments. I always read them and respond. And I would also love if anyone would like to send me questions or topics that they would like me to discuss or talk about. Please put it in the comments below, and I'll be happy to do that. As long as I get this intuitive feeling it's something I should be talking about. Most things are on the table, so feel free to ask any questions or make any comments, and I'd be happy to answer that or create a video on it. Well, I love you all. Bless you all. I thank you for watching. I'm really trying to get this channel to 1,000 followers and beyond, 1,000 subscribers and beyond. And you can help me out so much by liking and subscribing and commenting. If you feel so inclined, I would love to have some more supporters on my Patreon. So please take a look at that. There's some really great freebies on there for you, some items from my shop, some shop discounts. And it only starts at, I think, $1. Maybe $5. No, I think it's $5. I don't remember. But please check it out. See what you think. Give me feedback. And like I said, blessed be. Have a wonderful weekend. I appreciate and love you all. Mwah.